Hi there guys, Mike here. Welcome back to another video on the channel. In the last video we took a look at a lot of the hardware you see on the Jeep when you look at it at face value. Things like tyres, suspension, the armour and the frame stiffening work that's gone into it. We even took a little bit of a look at the engine too, and I showed you some of the mods I'd done to that to increase power and get better reliability. But in this video what I'm going to do is show you the internal mods that I've done to the vehicle and also some of the equipment I'm carrying too, so you get an idea of what it's like on the inside and the kind of gear that lives in the Jeep every day. We'll start with the back as it's one of the most important areas on the vehicle, or one of the main storage areas anyway. And this vehicle gets used as a camping vehicle, but the gear can come out of it and the rooftop tent can come off of it, and it can just be used as an everyday kind of truck as well, to pick people up from the airport, put luggage on the inside. But we'll start with this side here. You can see I've got a fire extinguisher, an axe and a saw. There's also a little brush. I'll explain that in a little while. But I think one of the most important mods I did a while ago, and I mentioned it on the channel, was removing the glass from the window and replacing it with an aluminium panel. And it's actually pretty tough. I mean, you can't push it out, and obviously you'll see the other side I've got a Rotopax with a lockable mount in the middle of it, which bolts through the aluminium. That holds around about 6.5 litres of water, and yeah, it's pretty useful really, just for having access to water directly on the outside of the vehicle. But two of the bolts that obviously come through the panel for the Rotopax mount are actually longer than the rest, and I did that just because I went to a hardware shop, got some longer ones, and got these plastic pieces here with thread inside, and it just allows me to tighten down the saw and the axe to have some gear out the way but not rattling around in the back of the vehicle, because that's one thing you do a lot with these vehicles, you're chasing rattles literally all the time. Two things to add would be, even despite not polishing the edges of the aluminium very well and putting a very aggressive Raptor liner coating on it, like a truck bed liner, I've had no leaks, so it's obviously working pretty well. This isn't the only fire extinguisher I've got, but it's definitely one of them, and it's on a Goldfire quick release fire extinguisher mount, and I bought this from China. Must have cost me around £15. You basically pull a pin and the fire extinguisher is kind of ready to come out on this like little rail here, and it can lock back in place. So I kind of like this because it makes it real fast to operate, and the mount is then obviously permanently connected just with some Jubilee clips. Putting it back isn't too difficult, although it never really goes according to plan actually. You kind of slot it in like that. Just notice that's come loose, so that's something really to bear in mind. It looks like the mechanism here screws in just on some thread, so I might need to put a bit of Loctite on that. Yeah, apart from that minor thing which I've just discovered, so some Loctite there would fix that. It's pretty good, and it doesn't tend to make too much noise when I'm driving, unless I'm doing some real bouncy trails where the car's just kind of wobbling around a lot, then you do tend to hear it doing this, but it's kind of negligible really, given the noise the rest of the vehicle makes. The little brush I've got is actually just like a housekeeping kit. I've got a microfiber cloth that goes with this too, but it's just come out the washing machine and I forgot to put it in. But it's really just for doing housekeeping. You know, when you're camping for long periods of time, let's say a week or even longer, as me and Meg did for 3 months, then you know you want to try and keep the vehicle clean. So it's nice just to do a bit of housekeeping from time to time, and yeah, just tidy stuff up. You can see I've actually painted this panel here. It's been Raptor lined. Raptor line's okay on plastic, but you have to use like an adhesion promoter and sort of scratch it up quite a lot. But another thing we've got here is just half a peg. That's because the rooftop tent ladder's broken, and this is kind of the security pin that stops the whole thing collapsing. The rooftop tent ladder's really poor quality actually, but we'll have a look at that in another video. Just here's a really big bag, and in here is just my tools and all my spare parts, and this is actually the same toolkit I use when I'm working on the car at home. It just all lives in this bag, so if I'm in the garage I just take it out, chuck it on the floor and work. And it's not everything I use for repairing the Jeep, but it is kind of like the primary tools that you can address most issues with. In the side pockets here, this side and that side, we've got the spare parts for the vehicle, and in here too, you know, tyre repair kit. In that side's all the tie rods and steering related things, bolts and heavy hardware. This side, things like relays and fuses. I've even got a water pump because you know, it's a big deal really, and a water pump's one of the most common failures you can get, and in all honesty it's not a massive job to do it on this vehicle because you don't actually have to take anything off apart from the auxiliary belt, so you know, that's kind of good. But yeah, rubber things, we've got the MAF sensor, that can cost you a fortune in some parts of the world. #1 fuel injector, does all the timing for the engine but also can be used as just a normal injector. The crank position sensor, again a really easy part to replace and actually access without having to drop anything. We've got U-joints too, but there's loads of parts in here, and really that's another video if you really are interested in that kind of thing. But some of these parts I have had to use, so you know, it's worth carrying spares when you get to know your vehicle. At the very back there you'll see a cage. This is just a DIY cage I've made myself, and it's actually connected to these supports just here too. These are just like some straps, basically some heavily rated straps, just to, in the event of something horribly bad going wrong. I have my young son sitting there, and if everything's going to come forward, you know, you have something at least tied into the frame of the vehicle that can kind of stop it, along with some arms there too. But I have an alu box, and I have to say thanks to Wingfield's Quality Adventure Goods. I know they gave me this box like 3 years ago, but just so they know if they're watching, I'm always grateful about being given this box. I have another one too at home. This is an alu box, like a lightweight aluminium box, and in here is all my camping cooking gear and food. The reason I like the kitchen in one box is it just means it can come out, it can go in the house, and then essential gear can live within the vehicle, but then I've got the space to put 2 suitcases in, 3 suitcases in, or other equipment if I'm doing something else with the Jeep. I've got a very large flask of tea. This holds 2 litres, so 2 litres this holds, and it's a Stanley. It's pretty good. We have other things in there like just washing up equipment and bin bags. We've got tea, we've got hot chocolate. Whoa, everything's in boxes. We've got the gas, which I use for a very small single burner, and I do a lot of meals with that single burner. It is legal to make fires here in Sweden, so I do a lot of cooking on fires too, but there is a fire ban at certain times of year, and also there's common sense, and sometimes there's time and speed and just the ease of using a small gas stove like this. Most of my food is, or the staples anyway, are contained in these igloo boxes. I picked these up from a charity shop for £1 per box, and they're really good. In here I've got like muesli, so oats and fruit. This is pasta, so you know, like gluten-free pasta because my wife's a celiac, so basically everything I have is kind of gluten-free. In here is rice, and I have another one just in here which is powdered milk. So I don't have a refrigerator in this vehicle, so essentially a lot of the meals I make are from dry food. And there's obviously the kitchen area here too, in a bucket. You can take that bucket out, and there's kettles and pans and other camping equipment, plates and a grill. But if you want to see a video on the kitchen and again the spares and stuff, and you're interested in the intricacies of exactly what I carry and why, just let me know in the comments section, and obviously I can do a specific video about it. But yeah, behind the alu box I've got a folding table. I bought this folding table from a camping shop in the UK called Atwell's. It never originally had the basin in it, but I cut a hole in the table with an angle grinder and glued it in with seam sealer, so it's like a collapsible basin. It works really well with the table because this table is folded in half, so it opens up. You pop the basin out, fill it with water using one of the Rotopax. And I originally had an idea too to make a hole in the bottom of this to drain it, but in all honesty what I tend to do now is just tip the table upside down, fold it up and chuck it back in the car. And behind the table, 2 seats, both from IKEA. They're both very basic, cheap, lightweight plastic seats, and I've just put some cushion padding on them just to make them a little bit more bearable in the winter. But some lighter, more technical seats would be great at some point. For the time being they fold flat, and when it folds flat it is really good for vehicles. We've got a few important bits this side, including the electronic setup, but yeah, what I've got here is just a fishing bag. I mean, this moves around the vehicle all the time, but in the moment it's got summer gear in, and in the winter a lot of the lures come out of this and the ice fishing equipment goes in, and then I carry an auger too. So that's just one bit of equipment really that, you know, it's just something I like to do when I'm out. Like to fish, catch fish, nice to cook fish on the fire too. Up here we've got the electronics pack, so this is kind of like cables and all sorts of other gear. If I open this up, it's a real mess because I never put it away last time, but we've got like a 12-volt pump with a big long extension lead, so I can use it up in the rooftop tent to charge the rooftop tent mattress. It can also be used for the blow-up boat, along with lots of attachments for the compressor. We've got cables, something for the laptop that does sort of like 15, 18, 17 and 21 volts, and it comes with lots of adapters so you can charge a whole range of kit with it. The thermocell backpacker, that plugs into like a little butane can, keeps the mosquitoes away in the summer, although sometimes it doesn't keep the mosquitoes away. But it's just an electrics thing with cables for iPhones and Samsungs and anything really that we bring with us, iPads and stuff. And that just lives behind this strap up here, and yeah, just lives there really, so it's kind of useful. You'll see just here in this big black box I've got an auxiliary battery, a leisure battery basically. It's such a long time ago since I've bought it that I will write exactly what it is in the description for you, but it's a banner battery and it's very large. It's too large for what I want it for, but it served me really well, and it charges when you drive the vehicle. So you see this big cable here, it runs all the way under the passenger seat to like kind of a smart dual charger kit that then runs around to the front of the vehicle and connects to the battery at the front. So as you're driving along, you know, it's supposed to detect the voltage of both the car battery and this battery and apply some juice to this to keep it charged. And the setup seems to work because I've run it for 4 years and neither battery seems to have any problems. Just to secure it in place, I use an orange strap with some rubber just to sort of take the noise out of this thing going all over the place that it used to do before that rubber was there. And the tie down points I've replaced with some 10mm bolts and a bigger D-ring there, mainly just down to corrosion. And you've got these two big fat plates either side as well, just as a bit of support. It's a nice little setup, it does me well. I'd love for that battery to be in a different place, and when I ran a draw system, it lived in the back of the draw system. And also at one point it was where the passenger seat is at the back there, but now I have a son and I like to use the vehicle for all sorts of stuff. I want the passenger seats in, so there's really nowhere I can think that it can go, and it absolutely will not fit under the bonnet in the front of the engine bay. So this thing just lives here. I've kind of learnt to live with it, although it would be great if it wasn't there, but it is. You can see the electronic setup just here is pretty simple. We've got a fuse box here, so everything is run on a different fuse. If something goes, it's pretty easy to know what it is, and it's also very easy then to select different fuses for different applications, so you're not sort of like going to run any risks with anything blowing up. But it's a nice little fuse box, and that's just bolted to the side of the plastic here. The other side of this plastic kind of bit of trim really is a metal panel, and you have to cut a big rectangle out of that metal panel and then roll the edges round and use some rubber edging so you're not cutting through wires with the vehicles vibrating, and just armour the cables with this kind of stuff that you get here. You can armour all the cables with that, and then you generally don't run into too many issues with vibrations, kind of gradually cutting through the rubber of the wire, and then one day bump, the fuse goes and you can't work out why. But we've got two 12 volts cigarettes. One is used for the light here, and it's a removable light on a magnet. And the idea behind that was if my vehicle breaks down and I don't have a light, I can basically just take that off and unclip it here and then run it on the underside of the vehicle with a big magnet from this 12 volt port here. And you can buy these extension cables for them too. I used to have one, but they're so poorly made I just thought I'd make my own. We've got 4 USB, so we've got 2 here, 5 volt 1 amp and 5 volt 2.1 amp, the same just here too. We've got a digital battery reader. Analog's better because it doesn't draw power, but you know, I've got this digital one which says it's 12 volts, and obviously you turn the whole setup off like that, turn it on, and the pump's just down here too with a switch. You know, so we can run the pump to pump up the boat or do my tyre pressure. And this is side lamps on the actual side of the vehicle too, so we've got some lights there that can shine out at night, so you can see the bears making a charge for the bacon. There we go, that's the setup. Another bit of gear in the back's just the fishing rod there. But what I will mention about the back is the whole back of the vehicle, or the inside of the vehicle, has been Raptor lined. Sometimes with a spray, some areas with a brush, and the roof's been bed lined as well. I don't run any carpet and I don't run any headliner. To be honest with you, I would actually like headliner again in this vehicle. I think it looks better and it's also more functional for me in this kind of climate. It gets really cold in the winter, and yeah, having headliner would be nice. But when I took the headliner out, there was corrosion on the roof above the driver's side head. Obviously the most heavily used area in the vehicle, I suppose, and the moisture coming off of somebody and going through the headliner and into the roof had caused some surface rust there. So I cleaned all that up and I bed lined the roof. So maybe if you've got a Cherokee out there, it's worth taking the headliner off and bed lining the roof, you know, and putting the headliner back in, or even maybe restoring the headliner and putting it back in. So if I can get some headliner one day, it is going to go back in the vehicle. But with regards to a carpet, I would never run a carpet in this vehicle again. You see rust in all the same places on Cherokees, and then when you take the carpet out and you see where the water goes, you realise why the rust is always in these same places on Cherokees. They're notoriously bad for leaking, and the carpet is awful for actually being able to ventilate itself and dry off. It has this big rubber thing on the bottom of it, and it just holds water. It's a really bad design. So having a bed lined floor with just removable mats is a really good setup for these vehicles. You get great peace of mind that you're not going to get any reoccurring rust. Even if you leave the vehicle for a whole summer with water in it like I have at some points, or a whole winter with ice in it like I get in the winter, I still don't get any rust because it's able to air itself out and dry. It's not being sandwiched and caught between two areas and just left there for 10-20 years. So bed lining it is with Raptor liner. I definitely recommend it. I knew that was going to happen. I knew I was going to happen, but I thought, like I think every time, I'm quicker than the water, and I'm not. But that's the back of the vehicle sorted, really. Some changes to the inside. I guess the windows count. I mean, I had the windows tinted. They were tinted when I got them, but I tinted them again. Before I get onto the gear on the inside, I'll talk just about some of the mods I did to the vehicle itself. In the last video I did mention I did a lot of restoration work on the Jeep, and you can see I Raptor lined inside the door wells here, sort of like the bit in between the door and the vehicle. And it's a nice restoration job, really. I think Raptor liner is a really nice paint, and it cuts up the colour a little bit, but also just puts a really tough paint kind of where a tough paint needs to be. The same with the bottom of the doors too. But inside here we've got the ARB awning room. This can go in the back of the vehicle too, because sometimes my wife likes to sit next to my son and just kind of play with him and stuff when we're driving long distance to keep him entertained. And this just basically opens up inside the ARB awning and gives you kind of like an area really where you can just chill, and when the flies are really intense, you know they're not going to bother you. And the nice thing about the ARB stuff is the mesh is really fine. But this thing's pretty good. It's quite heavy, but we're actually thinking about turning this into our accommodation, like where we sleep, and getting a wood stove for it so it can be insulated and winterized. But that's for another video. I've also got here my recovery bag. I picked this bag up from a charity shop for a couple of quid. I expect you haven't heard that one before, but you do get some really good stuff in these charity stores. If we open this up, it's like all my recovery gear, really. I mean, normally you might think, oh, you should put that in the toolkit bag, but I don't really like to do that because I see it as a part of recovery. But it's just a 5-ton bottle jack, and I just cut the top of an axle stand off of it and just pop that on the top there. And it just gives me a little bit more security when I'm lifting it up, and you know, you can put a little bit as a rubber pad in there that I chuck on the top there, so I don't just tear my paint up every time I lift my vehicle up. But I've got a couple of high visibility vests. I've got my warning triangle, which again is actually really useful even when you're on the forest roads in the snow. Some gloves. Got a 9-ton snatch block for the winch. All the The straps are rated at 5 ton, so this is just like quite a useful strap you can use for various things. This one you can wrap around trees. This is 10 meters. It's obviously what I use for most of the recovery. In here I've got jumper cables. I mean, you know, it's a recovery kit at the end of the day. And we've got 2 winch blankets just here. Some bungees, you know, just useful for nothing to do with recovery, but they're just in there anyway. And that's obviously part of the bottle jack. And this is just like a board that I use for snow, but also for soft ground. It's just thick aluminium, around about 5mm, along with some thick multiplex wood there, some hardwood. And it's just pretty useful just to put on the ground. I mean, like if you put that bottle jack on this ground now, it's going to vanish under the weight of the vehicle. I put the recovery bag back in, and that's normally where it lives, just down there. But if I have my son in the car, I don't like having heavy things near him, and there's not really a way of securing that, even with the seatbelt. This I don't mind so much, because that actually can be seat belted in pretty easily, and it's not very heavy. But that's got a lot of metal stuff in it, and I always think, you know, if there's a crash or we roll over and that knocks him on the head or something, you know, he's as good as gone. So that's usually either in the front with me, if my wife's in the back, and it usually goes down in the footwell of the passenger side, or it actually does go in the back of the truck. I actually prefer to have it here when I'm on my own, because basically it's easier to reach, and I've been in situations where the back of the vehicle is at an angle where I can't open the tyre carrier, so I can't actually even get to the recovery equipment. And once that happened, I started to move it around and separate it from some of the other equipment that's up the front. I do have a winch though, so you know, you could argue I could use that, but it's just nice to have the gear near you. If we open this side here, there's not much going on this side. We like to camp as a family, I'll be honest with you. I do go out on my own, and if I do go out on my own, I still leave this in a lot of the time. I built an ISOFIX bracket into the seat that mounts to the frame of the vehicle as well. An ISOFIX is kind of like the modern safe alternative to seatbelt seats that you get, and you'll see it obviously has some movement in it, like they will do and they should do, but it's a really strong system. And the nice thing about it is Max is getting bigger and heavier, and this seat will rate up to a certain kilo, and then we take this out, unclip it, and we just clip another seat straight in, so you never have to muck around with taking the seat out. And it rotates, makes them really easy to put in. You know, the vehicle's quite high for my wife anyway. She complains about it all the time, and I wind her up saying I'm getting 37s next. But basically, you know, you just take Max, you rotate the seat, you put him in, and he really finds the seat comfortable. He sleeps really well in it, and he loves it actually. He's quite happy when he's in there. But just a few other simple mods. We've got the same the other side, but we've got grab handles. So when you get inside the vehicle, you can obviously pull yourself in with that grab handle there. You can hang equipment from it as well. We've got a grab handle up here as well, so you can kind of pull yourself up into the vehicle. This is the passenger side, which would be the driver's side to a lot of you other people around the world who might be watching. But yeah, same sort of deal really. Did a lot of the Raptoring in here and restoration work around this area just to toughen it up. I run a pretty skeleton trim setup inside, so there's no headliner, as I said. A lot of this plastic stuff around here is not here. Along the edge of the seat there's no plastic either. And at the time when I ran the vehicle, I used to do a lot of kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, mud plugging, I think people call it. Driving through muddy water all the time, you know, just flooding the vehicle, going through rivers. You know, back in the UK, that is a lot of what the off-roading is. A lot of river crossings and mud and clay and, you know, really flooded areas, because that's just, you get a lot of rain there basically, and that's what it's like over there. So when I was running that kind of off-road setup, I used to get so much rubbish inside the Jeep that I just took all the plastic away and ran a skeleton setup just so I could jet wash the inside and make it easier to clean. And I had all the drain plugs out a lot of the time as well, because when you drove through a river it would all just drain back out again. But as a result, I tossed a lot of that stuff away. I took a lot of it to the recycling centre, and I only kept the bare essentials. So I run kind of just enough trim so the vehicle looks nice inside, you know, by Cherokee standards. But there's not really too much along the passenger side here. In the glove compartment we've got more maps of places we've been to in Europe. Most of these maps actually are all Scandinavia, they're all Sweden, because obviously that's predominantly where we travel now. But with regards to the driver's side, you'll obviously see a lot more going on, and I'll kind of talk to you from here but show you all the clips. Up here we've got a GoPro mount. This is just a housing to chuck a GoPro into. Got a phone clip there, just something I've screwed in place just because nothing ever seems to do. But this just holds the phone, allows me to use Gaia GPS, which is my navigation system, and also charge my phone and have access to it pretty easily. We've got glass breaking hammers. So we've got a couple of these in the vehicle, and they also cut seat belts too. So I have access to one here, and so does she if she's sitting next to me, or whomever is sitting next to me. There's also another one just up there for the passengers in the vehicle. I also have a CB radio plugged into the front there. It's an M760 Plus with a fire stick connected to the front bumper. In the centre console I've got a few things that I can access. One is a head torch. It's just chargeable. I don't keep this in the back, I keep it here because when it's dark and I get out the vehicle to do my tyre pressure or whatever, I want a torch on my head and I don't want to go to the back of the truck to get it. We've got a Wi-Fi winch remote just here. I normally use this one, but in an event that it runs out of batteries, I've got the plug-in one here. So this is the main winch controller just there too. And I've also got a spare key to be able to switch the winch on with the dead switch. Just up top there we've got a medical kit, and there's actually a tourniquet and an Israeli compression bandage on that med kit there too. On the outside you can see one side's the tourniquet, other side's a compression bandage. The medkit comes off and it's a rip away medkit, and this velcro panel is kind of basically strapped to the centerpiece here at the top. The reason it comes off is it's impossible to operate it while it's hanging upside down. Everything would just drop out of it. But also maybe you want to take it somewhere, maybe somebody injured themselves over there and you want to go take the medkit to them. But it just gives you access to be able to pull it off the roof, put it here, open it, use it, and you've got the tourniquet, you've got the grips and the compression bandage. And the reason they're on the outside of the kit is because I always think that in the event of a serious collision, maybe I'm knocked unconscious, maybe Megan is, maybe there's some sort of severe bleeding, I have access to the tools I need without basically having to get a medkit off the roof, then open it and then find what I want. I can just grab it straight away, and you're just saving seconds really to be able to do that. So yeah, that's why we have it that way. There's also a carabiner hanging off a D-ring at the side of the medkit, and that's got like some tools on, something for the camera gear, the winch key that I normally use, and a core valve remover for tyres, and that's how I do my tyre pressure. Other than everything else I've shown you, we've got the same sort of door card here. In here's some books, a knife. I always keep this actually in here, but I have my main knife that I always wear when I'm camping, and a small saw. The reason I carry a small saw as well as the big saw in the back is sometimes you're driving a track and there's a dead branch sticking out, and you just want to cut that one little branch so it doesn't just tear your paint up. And going to the back of the vehicle, opening the tyre carrier, getting the big saw out, getting to the branch, it kind of takes time. So just getting a little pruning saw out and chopping it down and driving on just saves you a bit of time, and it can also then go in your pocket when you leave the vehicle. We've got the same mats, so these can just be pulled out. We've got the main fire extinguisher, the one you can grab straight away, just here. Just here is kind of a basic switch panel, and it looks really rubbish, I know, but I only had this, and I will get a proper switch panel at some point when I can. But this is the auxiliary lights at the front for the winter, and this is an EGT temperature gauge. So at the moment we're on about 30 degrees in the manifold there on cylinder number 4, but basically I will make a nice panel here, and then I will have a boost gauge just here as well. So that's the way that will hopefully be eventually. And that really sums up internal mods on the vehicle. There's not really that much that's changed inside. It's mainly just streamlining things, stripping stuff out, painting stuff, restoring stuff, making it easy to clean, so I don't have to really care if the whole cab fills with water. I know it's not going to rust, and I can just pull the drain plugs out and let it all flow. But I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you very soon in another one. Thanks again.